It now gives me great pleasure to call upon the Minister of State at the Department of Foreign Affairs, responsible for trade and development, Minister Joe Costello, to address you. Minister.
Good Peter, Ardvera, Gwine Ushla Gulair, Mar Aristot, Bawaitlum Kid me the Falcha, Carliv Shugulair, Chacton Shock, a Block Clee, August Chacton Shock, Dun Codal Shock in Erin. It's a great honour, ladies and gentlemen, for me to have the opportunity to address you here this morning. And I want in the first instance to congratulate Dublin City Council for hosting this 8th forum of the World Alliance of Cities Against Poverty, Smart, Safe and Sustainable Cities. And I must say it was a great pleasure also to hear the patron of the forum, Michael D. Higgins, Oscailge Agus Osperla, commend the forum to you this morning. I'm especially pleased also to share a platform with some of our key development partners, including Michelle Bachelet, the Executive Director of the United Nations Women, former President Mary Robinson, now President of the Mary Robinson Foundation, and we will be having Irish Aid, the Irish Government, will be hosting a forum in April, 15th and 16th of April, with the Mary Robinson Foundation, Hunger, Nutrition, Climate Justice, and with the World Food Programme in the city here as well, which will I have no doubt, be a major contribution to the debate on hunger, nutrition and development. And to Mr. Tom Arnold, Chief Executive Officer of Concern Worldwide, I want to particularly pay tribute to them for the work that they have done. Let me add also my voice to welcome you all to Dublin, particularly those of you who have travelled long distances from Africa and from Asia. Despite the economic difficulties we are currently facing, the Irish Government remains strongly committed to our aid programme. We have had to make very difficult decisions, but we have stabilised our aid budget, which has in recent years been maintained at over 0.5% of GNP, which is allocated to the Overseas Development Aid Programme. But the ODA is just one part of our total contribution. We contribute also to our multinational partners in the United Nations, particularly, and in the EU, to our non-governmental organisations who are very much partners with us as well, and indeed the private sector is becoming increasingly part of the partnership in dealing with development. So we would very much in this regard compliment what's been done today, Lord Mayor, by you and your team here with Dublin City Council on this initiative. As Minister with special responsibility for development cooperation as well as trade promotion, I have a particular interest in the conference theme of smart, safe and sustainable cities, especially given the added focus on the contribution of technology, which I believe is has enormous potential in relation to the work that we are doing in the entire development and the climate change area. It is clear to all of us that the world is changing. The bipolar world in which my generation grew up is no more. East and West are now partners rather than adversaries, and while the West deals with a financial crisis, much of the developing world is recording unprecedented economic growth levels. I believe that aid has served developing countries well, and there continues to be a long-term need for aid, particularly in the least developed countries and in fragile states. But there is also now a greater recognition of the contribution of non-traditional aid partners. These include South-to-South and triangular cooperation, the role of the private sector and the role of private foundations, and it seems to me that this conference will usefully provide an opportunity to learn from each other on these and on many other issues. Furthermore, this forum comes at a critical juncture as we examine the progress being made towards the Millennium Development Goals. Next September, the United Nations will undertake a final review of our collective progress before the MDG deadline of 2015, and then we have to begin to prepare the post-2015 approach. Meanwhile, we have already started a global discussion about the framework to succeed the MDGs after 2015, and under the Irish presidency, we held the first substantive discussion at EU level when I chaired the meeting of development ministers and commissioners in Dublin Castle last week, and we agreed that a very ambitious objective, that the overall focus must be on the elimination of poverty, and a very ambitious target, and that should be done within a generation. It has to be achieved now. Last year's UN report on the MDGs proved that much progress has been made. The targets for reducing poverty, access to clean water, and gender parity in primary education were met. The number of children dying before their 5th birthday declined from 12 million in 1990 to 7.6 million in 2010. And solid progress was made in tackling HIV, AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. But not enough progress was made in other areas, particularly on reducing hunger and maternal mortality. Furthermore, gender equality, women's empowerment, and climate change will require a far more intensive effort both prior to and post-2015. The fact that we have already achieved the MDG target of ensuring a significant improvement in the lives of 100 million people living in slums is of course to be welcomed. On the other hand, the fact that we exceeded the target by another 100 million people and achieved it 5 years early suggests we were not nearly ambitious enough. There is also a real risk that many of the urban poor may be statistically invisible. This may be because they do not have any official recognition on voting or on property registers. It is also the case that national dollar-a-day measures of poverty do not take account of the significant additional cost faced by the urban poor, such as food, transport, and rent. We certainly need to do more if we are to meet the twin challenges of population growth and increasing urbanisation. Just 1 century ago, less than 20% of the world's population were living in urban areas. 2 years ago, we reached the 50-50 point. By the end of this century, some 70% of the world's population will live in urban areas, and the vast majority of that increase will take place in developing countries. UN Habitat have alarmingly put this in context by looking at the increasing population of 6 cities: New Delhi, Mumbai, Dhaka, Lagos, Kinshasa, and Karachi. In each year, these 6 cities alone will experience a population increase equivalent to the total current population of Europe. When you come across a small country like Ireland with a population of just over 4.6 million, these figures are almost impossible to comprehend in their enormity. Clearly, if we are to make progress on development targets in the coming decades, then our cities will have to play an enormous role in delivering development for the billions of their inhabitants. And that is where I hope this forum, and I'm sure it will, make a valuable contribution. I understand that there are many workshops planned across a wide range of themes, and if you allow me, I would like to focus on some of these topics which are of particular interest and priority for my own government, and that is the issues of hunger, vulnerability to climate change, and gender equality. Nearly 1 billion people still suffer from hunger, most of them women and children. The world's population is set to reach 9 billion by 2050, which will require a 70% increase in agricultural production if everyone is to be fed. Over the same period, climate change, water scarcity, and land degradation could reduce food production by 1/4, leading to further increases in the number of people suffering from hunger. But it is not simply how much food people have to eat that is of concern. It is also about the nutritional value of that food, particularly where poverty leads to over-reliance on one staple food, lacking the wide variety of vitamins or protein that our bodies require. Food and increased prices impact on women and children in particular, but it is also a critical issue for other vulnerable groups, such as those affected by HIV/AIDS. Although we usually see agricultural production in developing countries as a rural issue, any increase in food prices is going to be felt most acutely by those who are already vulnerable, and in particular by the urban poor. I am therefore very pleased that on the 15th to 16th of April, during our presidency of the European Union, we will, as I mentioned, together with the Mary Robinson Foundation, convene an international conference in Dublin to open a debate on the linked challenges of addressing hunger, nutrition and climate justice. The objective will be to learn from practical experience and robust evidence to inform a new approach to addressing hunger, nutrition and climate justice in the context of the post-2015 agenda. I hope that the lessons learned from your workshops here today can also help to inform the work of that April conference. Ladies and gentlemen, the concepts of smart, safe, sustainable cities are completely interlinked in that you cannot have one without the other. All aspects of our urban infrastructure must be safe for all members of society, including the elderly, women and children, among others. This includes public safety on our transport system. It also includes our schools, whether the issue is cyberbullying or physical or sexual abuse. Smart, safe cities, above all else, requires joined-up government. By that I mean that national and local government work closely together with the private, business and voluntary sectors, but above all else, with the active involvement of the communities from whom they derive their mandate. With good governance in place, our citizens can reasonably expect that we can address the more immediate concerns: better urban planning, infrastructure, housing, the public safety, unemployment and disaster risk reduction. Technology is a powerful catalyst for rapid development. One cannot ignore the sudden leapfrog in so many countries from traditional phone landlines, to the wide availability of mobile phones. One can only marvel at the many new applications, often pioneered by developing countries, from money transfers to accessing market or medical information without the need for unnecessary travel. Ireland prides itself in our role in developing world-leading technology in many areas, including ICT and pharmaceutical technology. I am particularly pleased that my department has recently joined forces with our Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine to launch the African Agri-Food Development Fund. This fund will use Ireland's public and private sector expertise in food production to support African countries to sustainably develop their local food industry and increase the sale of local produce in their national and in their regional markets. Technology must, of course, be appropriate to local conditions if it is to be sustainable. I understand that a number of the workshops will highlight best practice in this regard. As we have learned from many natural disasters across the world, technology is critical to provide early warning. For every dollar spent on disaster preparedness, we can save $7 after the event. Infrastructure and technology must take account of increased disasters, but ultimately, as we have learned in many countries, communications and energy infrastructure can fail. In fact, the most successful recovery starts long before the disaster strikes, through the preparation of community-based disaster response plans. So in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, each of our cities has its own unique development history. There is no one-size-fits-all solution. Yet, as President Higgins mentioned, all of our cities face common challenges, and we have all much to learn from our shared experience. I wish all of you a fruitful exchange of ideas today, and I very much look forward to hearing the lessons from the next 2 days, and I hope that you will also indeed have a very enjoyable stay in Dublin and in Ireland. Thank you very much.